HarperCollins presents Left for Dead, The Strange Death and Rebirth of the Labour Party, by Lewis Goodall. Read by Alex James-Cox. Prologue. Longbridge. Son, where we're from, you could put a donkey in a labour rosette and it'd win. My dad, many, many times. I'm not sure there's been a time when my family wasn't involved in making things. Some of my earliest memories involve my granddad coming home and presenting the 3 or 4-year-old version of me with some samples of buttons, medals or coins that he'd helped make at the Birmingham Mint. Grandad, as its works manager, got my dad a job there too. He was a lanky 22-year-old, just moved to Birmingham to be with a 17-year-old mum who had just given birth to me. They'd met at a Scarborough holiday camp a year or so before, my dad's first ever holiday. He was from Middlesbrough, the son of a dock worker, and before then he'd barely left the town as a kid. He later said it put him off holidays for life. He didn't have a qualification to his name, except a GCE in needlework. This didn't help at the Mint, where the only job my granddad had available was on a machine that needed a delicate approach and small fingers, which probably explained why all the other workers in the department were women. He didn't, Grandad told me later, excel himself, but he tried his best. He survived through a combination of Grandad's munificence and a bit of light-form fiddling. We all lived cheek by jowl in Erdington in North Birmingham. Me, my 2 aunts, mum and dad, and my grandparents. I was the apple of my family's eye. It probably explains why I'm unafraid of the limelight. It was a mindlessly happy existence for a little boy. But after my granddad could fiddle the figures for Dad no more, my nan phoned up the Rover plant, on the other side of the city in Longbridge, where she'd heard they needed some new workers. She asked if they had any openings for her son-in-law. Just about. He'd married my mum weeks before. I was page boy at the ripe old age of 4. So, we left Erdington and crossed the city to the South Birmingham suburb of Northfield, just next to the vast Rover plant. I walked past it to secondary school for 5 years. For more than a decade, my dad worked there nearly every working day. Each morning I'd leave for school just as he was getting in after a night shift. Then, not long after, I'd go home around 4:30 p.m. Mum would instruct me, probably for the 3rd or 4th time, to go and tell him to wake. He had to get up and eat before he started again. We were ships in the night. I didn't mind. It was a given. Mum and Dad worked, and Dad worked more hours because he had to look after me and my younger sister. He worked incredibly hard, and still does, without complaint. These were the comforting rhythms of my childhood. These days, I imagine it must be hard for kids in the playground to describe what their fathers and mothers do for a living. How, as a child, do you go about describing what Mummy, the management consultant, does? Or Daddy, who works as a computer software programmer, or project managers? Or account directors, or procurement experts. But for many of us in Turves Green Primary School's playground, we knew what our dads did. They worked at the Rover. They made cars. And most of them drove in the cars they had made. And I knew which bit my dad worked on, the doors. He was a welder. Today, in the increasingly unlikely event that you see a Rover on the roads, my dad probably welded it on its hinges. It wasn't uncommon. When I think back to my friends and classmates, so many of us had fathers and mothers who were employed on the Rover site and even more in the wider supply chain of the plant. Rover was ubiquitous, part of the bloodstream. They even sponsored our school technology labs and our curriculum, their branding and emblem proudly on display on many a classroom wall. Our families were connected through Rover socially via the Austin Social Club, just down the road from the main site.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?